film. I was very interested in Spider-Man, but that was a unique.
While Sony has been quite successful with the Spider-Man franchise, very few fans know about James Cameron's attempt at making a Spider-Man movie with Carolco Pictures. Even though the project didn't see the light of day, the film's script guaranteed a whole new spin on the character, and it might have just changed Marvel forever. In fact, Cameron's vision even inspired Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and today we'll explore what happened to James Cameron's Spider-Man film and why it's still considered iconic, even if it never made it to the big screen. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. James Cameron's vision for Spider-Man. James Cameron's involvement in the Spider-Man franchise can be traced all the way back to the 80s, when Stan Lee was considering handing over the rights to Spider-Man to Canon Films. Eventually, Carolco Pictures purchased the rights to the film in the early 1990s and hired James Cameron to write, direct, and produce this project. Cameron had a specific vision for Spider-Man and even described the character as Spider High School Kid. He wanted Spider-Man to be a geeky teenager who doesn't fit into popular social groups, and he used the film as a metaphor for puberty. While Spider-Man's main appeal lies in his powers and spider sense, Cameron also wanted to highlight the changes that one goes through during puberty and explore Spider-Man's social anxieties, struggles with expectations, and sexual interactions. The script was supposed to introduce Peter Parker as a young teenager who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and grows organic web shooters while also developing mechanical shooters to prevent the public from freaking out. In addition to this, Cameron's Spider-Man naturally gained the predatory nature of these arachnids, and Electro even tells Spider-Man that they are predators who kill to live in a face-off on the World Trade Center. In this way, Cameron's vision for Spider-Man involved exploring his struggle with his newfound bloodthirstiness, and the film would have been R-rated due to frequent profanity and the occasional graphic nudity. In fact, the script also had an intimate scene between Peter Parker and MJ on the Brooklyn Bridge while they discuss spider mating rituals. Finally, some concept art in Tech Noir: The Art of James Cameron hinted at a sleek, dark symbiote outfit for Spider-Man as opposed to his traditional red and blue costume. Spider-Man was seen wearing this suit in the Marvel superheroes' Secret Wars, and even though his origins are not linked to any symbiotes, this design might have been a part of Cameron's vision. Plot and character changes. Cameron also submitted an updated 57-page scriptment that narrated his vision for the film's script and outlined the narrative. Cameron even revealed that he had discussed his plans for Spider-Man with Stan Lee in great detail and often picked his brain for more ideas. He settled on a plot where Peter Parker gains his powers through an experiment that transfers spider DNA into his bloodstream, as opposed to the classic tale of him being bitten by a radioactive spider. Cameron also wanted to include classic comic villains such as Electro and Sandman, but again, they were introduced as new characters named Carlton Strand and Boyd respectively, which greatly differed from their comic counterparts. Cameron envisioned Electro as a megalomaniacal parody of corrupt businessmen, while Sandman's storyline involved a mutation after getting caught up in Philadelphia experiment-style biolocation and atom mixing as opposed to a nuclear blast. Electro was supposed to be the main antagonist, and the film would have culminated in a finale on top of the World Trade Center, where Spider-Man fights against him and ends up revealing his true identity to Mary Jane Watson. Let's briefly explore the plot, which kicks off with Peter Parker attending the same school as Mary Jane Watson and her boyfriend, Flash Thompson. When the class goes on a field trip to a laboratory to study magnetically enhanced flies, Peter ends up in an unfortunate accident where he gets bitten by a spider that had eaten one of these flies. Soon enough, the mutation passes on to him through the spider venom, and he ends up experiencing a psychotropic state where he hallucinates visions inspired by Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. This sequence was inspired by Frank Laloggia's script, and it soon gave way to his transformation as he grows spinnerets out of his wrists and learns that he can shoot spider webs. While Peter tries to embrace these changes, he decides to create web shooters to hide the spinnerets and also give himself a new identity as Spider-Man. He makes himself a costume and even teams up with Mary Jane to study more about spiders in their chemistry class. Around the same time, a burglar tragically kills Uncle Ben while Spider-Man wanders around at night keeping an eye out for crime, and he then goes after the burglar and webs him up for the police to find him. He then decides to use his powers for good and get rid of such criminals, but this proves to be tricky as reporter J. Jonah Jameson starts a smear campaign against him. As the plot picks up, we're introduced to Electro and Sandman as they join hands to get rid of Spider-Man. Sandman seems to be working for Electro and even puts up a good fight against Spider-Man during one of the latter's TV appearances. However, Spider-Man manages to defeat him, and Electro then resorts to other means, such as fueling the smear campaign against him to bring him down. In the meantime, Spider-Man saves Mary Jane from being mugged, and the two even share a brief kiss while Spider-Man uses his web slingers to swing across Manhattan and impress her. Soon after, Mary Jane ends up breaking up with her boyfriend Flash, while Peter Parker's feelings towards her continue to intensify. This ends up being a bad thing when Electro gets wind of their connection and decides to use Mary Jane as bait to lure Spider-Man into his trap. In a nail-biting finale, Electro threatens to kill Mary Jane by electrocuting her while Sandman traps Spider-Man and forces him to watch helplessly as Electro sends minor shocks through Mary Jane's body. He eventually breaks free from Sandman's trap and chases after Electro in a sequence that culminates at the top of the World Trade Center. As most superhero stories go, Spider-Man emerges victorious while Electro loses his strength and coughs up blood as he takes his last breath. Soon after, Spider-Man dumps about $200 million worth of Electro's cash into the streets of New York before directing his attention towards his regular life. In a week's time, he graduates from high school and starts dating Mary Jane, who finally realizes that he is Spider-Man when the two of them share a kiss. While this script might be pretty straightforward, Cameron hoped to explore Spider-Man's journey through puberty as he tries to grow as a person while also dealing with his newfound superhero identity. The script was also packed with quirky elements such as experimental spiders, wads of cash fluttering down the streets of New York, and fight scenes that result in electrical storms and blackouts. Casting rumors and production plans. When Cameron was developing his script with Carolco Pictures in 1992, he hoped to cast Leonardo DiCaprio as Spider-Man and Maggie Smith as Aunt May. Other key cast members included Robin Lively as Mary Jane Watson and R. Lee Ermey as J. Jonah Jameson, while prominent names such as Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen were considered to play Sandman and Electro, respectively. Cameron also talked about wanting to cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Octopus, but he was not even a part of the script. Unfortunately, these actors never got a chance to bring these characters to life, as Carolco Pictures had to stop production in 1992 due to legal troubles, studio bankruptcies, and budget issues. The movie's production had not made enough progress at this stage, and the final screenplay had not even been greenlit by the studios. Moreover, Carolco Pictures cited a $50 million budget to Cameron, which would have been far too little to fund the expensive sets and visual effects required to bring the script to life. Legal battles and studio bankruptcies. Cameron did try to work with Carolco Pictures, and their lawyers presented him with a contract similar to that of Terminator 2. According to this agreement, Cameron had the right to decide the movie and advertising credits, even though Golan had been actively working on assembling these elements for the film. Around 1993, Golan decided to file legal action against Carolco for going against his contractual guarantee credit as a producer, while Cameron still held the right to decide on credits. This kickstarted a messy legal battle over credits, where Carolco even sued Viacom and Columbia to receive the broadcast and home video rights, and both these studios decided to countersue Carolco. In the meantime, 20th Century Fox also contested Cameron's involvement in the project and claimed that they had exclusive rights to his services as a director. Amidst this chaos, Carolco Studios, 21st Century, and Marvel all went bankrupt in 1996, and it seemed like this project would never see the light of day. Through a quitclaim from Carolco in 1995, MGM gained the rights to 21st Century's film library and assets. This included all the rights and drafts to all the versions of the Spider-Man screenplay written by a range of writers, including James Cameron, Frank LaLoggia, Ethan Wiley, Leslie Stevens, and so on. MGM also went on to sue 21st Century, Marvel, and Viacom for violating the original deal between Canon and Marvel finally re-emerged from bankruptcy in 1998. The courts declared that any original contract between Marvel and Golan had expired, and that Marvel regained the rights to Spider-Man. The following year, Marvel licensed these rights to Sony Pictures Entertainment subsidiary Columbia, even though MGM continued to dispute the legality of this deal. In the meantime, MGM's chief executive, John Calley, aligned himself with Columbia Pictures and declared that they would be producing a James Bond series based on the McClory material. MGM realized that this project would directly rival their own 007 series, and it was one of their most reliable sources of theatrical income. On the other hand, Columbia would also have faced losses if MGM decided to produce a Spider-Man film, and the two studios settled on a trade-off in March 1999. Columbia gave up its rights for the 007 series as long as MGM agreed to give up its claim to Spider-Man, and it went on to make several Spider-Man films that have raked in over $2 billion in franchise revenues. While the franchise has been a success, it's quite unfortunate that James Cameron never got an opportunity to bring his vision to life. Influence on later Spider-Man films and legacy. After Cameron left the project and signed a new deal with 20th Century Fox, Sam Raimi directed the next Spider-Man film, which was written by David Koepp. The film was released in 2002, and while it seems to be inspired by Cameron's script to some extent, he never received any formal or informal credit for the same. Some scenes that were clearly influenced by Cameron's vision included Peter's fever dream and Mary Jane being introduced as his love interest. Other instances included Peter not needing glasses, Uncle Ben dying in a carjacking incident, and, most importantly, Peter Parker's organic web shooters. Even though fans remember Maguire's Spider-Man gaining his powers through the radioactive spider bite, Cameron had come up with the idea of organic web shooters that defined the crucial detail in Spider-Man's cinematic history. However, Cameron did say that his vision for the web slingers was far more different from the ones in Sam Raimi's film, and he wanted them to have a gritty quality. Read the Scriptment. While we've explored Cameron's vision for Spider-Man, the 50-page Scriptment that he pitched to Carolco has been leaked online. It's available for fans to skim through, and additionally, Cameron also released the concept art for the film as a part of his book, Tech Noir: The Art of James Cameron. Marvelous verdict. And with that, we've explored everything there is to know about James Cameron's Spider-Man. It's quite unfortunate that the movie never came into being, and Cameron has also admitted that it was the greatest movie that he never made. While the movie business is quite volatile and things don't always pan out as expected, it would have most definitely been one of the best Spider-Man incarnations, and it's always fun to think about this alternate universe, even if it never came into being. We hope you enjoyed exploring it with us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.